back to Leveling Up, everybody. It is another beautiful day, and today I've got a very unique guest. He is a comedy brand expert, and the thing about David Uribe you need to know is he helps take brands, specifically in the comedy industry, and does brand ups for stand-ups. He's someone that puts the funny behind the money, and I'm so excited to make sure that we can have such a wonderful conversation with him. Today, this is the Funny Business Branding episode. You may be thinking, wait a second, I'm not a comedian. What am I going to be getting value from this? Is there anything for me in this as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, as a business owner? Guys, if you're not funny, there's going to be less money. It's just how it goes. And we're going to have some fun today so that it's not just about being compelling on stage. It's actually every single stage of your life, everything that you do, there's going to be some way that comes back to you if you have a great brand and people can recognize you. Because if you're really funny, but nobody knows about it because your brand is awful, man, this is going to be so helpful for you. And if you're a speaker or you're someone that really wants to make sure their story is more confident on or off stage, making sure that you're really engaging, we're going to have some tips and tricks today that are going to be so fun for you. So you do not want to miss it. Let's welcome David to the show. How you doing, David? So glad you're here.
What's up? Good to be here. Thanks for having me, Brigham.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here too. I love the little tiny hand. This is what David's known for. He's that tiny hands man. You said you have tiny hands man. Is that
I think I actually own tinyhandsguy.com.
Tiny hands guy. That's what it was. Tiny hands guy. So eventually that's going to be like a huge site. We just know tiny hands, but big money.
Everything looks
David,
huge.
give us a quick background on yourself. Why do you have such a passion about helping comedians become seen, get paid, and build a brand that's recognizable?
Yeah. So, for the past 20 plus years, I've worked as a designer, a creative professional, marketer, brander. So, I've worked in all kinds of creative spaces. And in that time, I've also been a stand-up comedian, an improv performer, created like silly content online. And, when I realized that like both of those are superpowers and like when I can combine them both, I can make an even bigger impact. I felt like, man, this is my calling to bring more laughter in the world and to do it in a way that I can leverage my skills. And so, I work with a lot of professional comedians who've been doing it anywhere from 5 to 27, 20, 30 plus years. And I want to help them get seen, booked, and paid even more. So that's my passion. That's what I'm about.
Beautiful. And I love your website put together so beautifully, very simply. One of my favorite things about the way that you did that is you have these little animations that go over your face. So if you like to have some playful humor with animations, different things like that, go check out his website. It is comedybranding.com. You get to know a little bit more about what he does. But let's dive straight into the content, because the reason why people show up here is because we want to hear some actionable insights, things that will take them to that next level in their brand. We're going to be specifically talking to comedians. However, this knowledge is transferable to business owners. This knowledge is transferable to speakers. Anyone that wants to build a personal brand, this will be applicable to you. So let's first start out. How do you build a brand? Give us the 30,000 foot overview. What is the key to do this?
Yeah, I like to say, like, let's maybe use some defining some terms here, right? So when we talk about a brand, what is it? And I like to try to oversimplify things to make it easy to process. And a brand is essentially the way that people think about you or your business, right? And what can you do to influence that thought process? And so, when you think about Coca-Cola, immediately a couple of things I imagine come to mind, right? A color scheme, a specific product, like a bottle, right? You might think of even Santa Claus or polar bears, and that's something that over the many years of them being in business, they have kind of fed us literally and figuratively, like the way that they want to be perceived as an organization. And any person who is a comedian is essentially a small business owner. Like you are the owner and you are the product, you are the business. And so I think it's super valuable to think about, like, how can I influence the way people think about me as a performer, as a product, as an entertainer. And so, I like to say that, I do brand ups for stand ups because I want to help them really, own their brand. And there's a couple of key ways that you can do that.
Excellent. Well, help me understand, what does the nuts and bolts look like when you're putting together a brand for someone that maybe is just absent online? When you click on Google and you put their name in, it's not even close to who they are. And you have to like go and search through Google to find anything about them, 5 or 6 pages deep. And that's the best place to hide a dead body, I've heard, is on the
Yeah.
5th page of Google. So
Yeah.
definitely
Um,
tell us a little bit more. What's the nuts and bolts going from I don't have hardly anything online to building a quality brand?
yeah, that's a great question. I think, at the base level, I like to talk about, like, every comedian should have the 5 foundations of a comedy brand, and they build on each other, right? So we'll start at the bottom of the pyramid, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
So the bottom is what I like to say is visual messaging. Is like, what are the words that describe you as a performer, that describe your act, that describe like what you're all about, and what are
Mhm.
the visuals that people associate with you, right? So photography, is there a color scheme, so if I were to say to you carrot top, you know what comes to mind for you for that name?
Oh, for me, you've got the big hair. You also have this. Because I've seen a lot of his comedy. He's got lots of props. He's a prop comedian.
Yeah,
So that's the thing that sticks out to me, is he is very energetic and kind of in your face, almost irreverent type of
yeah.
comedy. That's what pops out.
And so he's done a great job of taking up real estate in your brain because you associate him with props. That's a very unique name, Carrot Top. Like, who actually knows his real name? And then a color scheme, right? He is a redhead, so it's like an orange, and he actually has a logo with carrot on there. Another name that you might have kind of visual association for is, I'll just say the name Fluffy. Like,
Yeah.
what comes to mind?
Gabriel Iglesias, he's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
And you've got that big brand where he's like holding his microphone up.
yeah.
He's huge, and not just literally, but I mean, he's huge in the sense of his brand is all over the place, and he's not just an actor and a comedian. He's been able to build that brand huge. I love it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, like, I think those are names that might be for some comedy fans or even some comedians kind of polarizing because they have a very specific, outlandish, like bubbly, bright, uh,
mhm.
visual messaging, visual brand. But the beauty of it is, like, you can't forget who they are. Like, I gave you one word and you knew how to describe them, right? And so that's the opportunity that every comedian has, is to claim a word, claim real estate in your brain as either a fan or as a booker, and that's ultimately what we want to do, is take up space, and we want to be able to stand out. Because if you don't, what happens is, especially in the world that we live in now, where everyone's trying to get on like Kill Tony, like a show like that, where it's a bunch of guys in hoodies, kind of like I'm wearing right now, they stand up on the mic and you can't remember who they were, so you want to build some visual messaging. It's kind of the first step.
That's beautiful. So visual messaging, making sure that it's not just simple to remember them, but they're unforgettable because everything they do ties back to that 1 or 2 words that they own. The one that pops up in my head is actual, "You might be a redneck."
Yeah.
Who is
Yeah.
that, guys?
Yeah.
In the chat, go ahead and throw us like, "Hey, who do you know that is?"
Yeah. When you
If you
hear
don't
the
know,
word,
I'll be surprised because that's one of my favorite comedians.
yeah. So obviously Jeff Foxworthy has kind of claimed that word, right? And other guys in that space that are kind of, part of that world as well. They kind of built an ecosystem of like serving that blue collar,
Blue collar
kind
comedy.
of redneck, kind of, like unashamed redneck kind of,
Get her
look.
done.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a
Another
great example.
example. All right, so
So
you
I
said
guess, yeah.
oh, go
So
ahead.
we talked about the visual messaging, and ultimately, I'd say that the next level, the next foundation that builds on top of that, like once you have the clarity, is like you need a home base for all that, for that messaging to live, and ultimately that's a website. And so the mistake that a lot of comedians make is they either don't have a website, or it's broken, it's expired, or it's very outdated. And sometimes it's there, but it's so cluttered, you don't know what to do, right? Those are kind of the 4 common mistakes.
Mhm.
And so I'm a big proponent of having a very simple and clear website with up-to-date photography. And that, was really serving the bookers and the fans. So I don't want to overcomplicate things for comedians. I want to simplify. And that's just the way that when people come across you, they now know where to find out more about you. Like if they want to dig into, who you are, the best place to do it is on your website, not on some like link tree where there's 1,000 buttons and you're like, I don't know what to press. Right. So I'd say the second foundation is the website.
Excellent. And this is part of your customer journey. Where do you send people when they get to know you? I think this is something that a lot of us in business, we have so many different things we do that if we don't have a simple customer journey, it's difficult for them to know how to interact with us, how to purchase things from us, how to book us so we get on different stages. That's a great point. Now, what's the third one? You said 5 foundations. What's the third
Yeah.
one?
So again, we're building, right? Visual messaging, it lives on your website. And now you're actually positioned to have an effective social media account. So the third foundation is social media. And so why is that the third one? Because, now you can go online with confidence knowing that you have a brand that represents you. You can have a clear avatar photo. You can leverage the banners on your social media accounts to really describe your comedy in the way that we've already defined it, right? In the first foundation. And ultimately what you want to do is on your social media is you want to be discoverable. First of all, like you want people to be able to find you and figure out that you're a comedian. You want to show your comedy at play. Like you want to give people a taste of who you are, because that's how they're most likely going to find you. And then you want to really point them to the right place. And again, that's where you're going to point back to your website. And so, I like to say that, the website is where the conversion happens, where like the decision, where people activate you, but social media is where you get discovered, right? So that's where you get seen. And the website is really the function of helping you get booked and getting tickets sold.
Absolutely. If you don't have that opportunity for them to get exposure, they don't have that awareness, that social media will help put your message out there and give them a little taste. You have to have a way to collect that decision. Otherwise, they just will stay fans online and they won't know where your next show is. That's something I think is really important probably on your websites to know when's the next time you could physically come and see me, or you can look on the schedule. Oh, I have a availability next week and we have a show that just fell through. We need to hire a guy. You have availability. If it's updated on your website, now you have an opportunity. But if it's not
Absolutely.
updated, then you might have missed that and didn't even know you missed it because it wasn't listed there.
Yeah, I'd say the things that people don't realize is these social media platforms like the Instagrams and TikToks and Facebooks, like their whole goal is to keep you on the platform, to keep you enjoying content and scrolling to the next bit of content. Like if they
Mhm.
could keep you all day there, they'd be really happy. But as a business owner, as a comedian, like you ultimately want to translate those eyeballs into dollars, right? Like you want to turn that into kind of a long-term, fan base that you can activate, and bring more awareness to your comedy, get more cheeks and seats, as like I like to say.
Cheap
So that's
and
the goal.
I
Yeah.
like that. Well, one of the things that comes to mind is Kevin Hart. He's a brilliant brand ambassador for himself. And one of the reasons he's been so successful, not just in stand up, but coming and being a movie star, is he built a business, not just was a performer. And the shift from being a solopreneur or someone that is just I get on stage and I make money because I'm performing versus someone that every time you're on stage, they can buy content from you because you have specials that you've done or you have books that you've written. You have different types of ways they can interact with you. And then you have back end fulfillment so that it can actually grow and scale, whether you're on stage or you're talking to someone on the phone or they see you on a podcast. If you don't have that business system set up to capture leads, actually sell people on the idea and then fulfill on it, you don't really have a business. You're just an employee to any of the comedy clubs that are out there. And
Yeah, I
what
would
I'm
even say even worse, like you're just adding to the noise, right? You're just
right.
like a clanging cymbal online because everyone is vying for attention online. And I think a lot of comedians specifically worry that, they see other comedians as competition, but truly, like you're competing with everything online. You're
Mhm.
competing just for attention. And so, to your point, like if you can garner somebody's attention with a great comedy bit, a great clip, then you have to activate them. Like that's your prime moment to activate them, from becoming like a person who laughs to a person who actually becomes a fan.
Yeah. What does that look like typically in your practice before we go to the next step? Helping
Yeah.
someone go from interested because they liked your comedy, then they started interacting with you multiple times. Maybe they've watched a bunch of your reels, and then going to the website so they can start that customer journey. Talk to us about what that looks like.
Yeah, it's kind of a three-pronged phase. There's a kind of the flywheel concept. Like in marketing, there's the funnel concept, which you alluded to it. Like the top of the triangle essentially is like where most people might fall, and the ones who are interested get closer and closer to the bottom, where they actually make a purchasing decision. And in that world, like once they make a purchasing decision, they're gone, right? Hypothetically, I'm a big fan of the flywheel concept, where it's a circle. It's like three pieces. They're always moving. So I like to say the get seen is the first phase, right? And we've talked about that a little bit. You get seen by having a clarity of message, having a website, having a social media presence. Getting booked, I'd say, is the second phase. Is like now that people are landing on your site, you're giving a very clear way for people to buy tickets and for bookers to activate you by having a booking form on your site. And then getting paid is really kind of the I would say like the pinnacle of the flywheel, because now you're giving your fans, the people who were strangers at first and then prospects and then fans, now you're giving them ways to actually support you with their dollars, right? And anybody who's spending money on you as a performer, like you're priming them to become a part of your marketing army. Like they're the ones who buy your merch that have your name on it or your slogan. Like they're out there promoting you for you. And they're doing it with their own dollars, right? So that's the kind of the ultimate, I'd say, ideal system, is you're turning strangers into prospects, into fans, and ultimately into promoters. And so that flywheel keeps spinning, because as your fans expose you to other people, you're getting more strangers who kind of keep that loop going. So the goal is to have a system that always keeps that flywheel moving.
Beautiful. This flywheel concept is so essential, because then you're not thinking it's a one-off, one and done thing. You're thinking, how do I nurture these fans? How do I make sure I build a deep relationship? I have a good buddy of mine that just read my book, The Story Hook Method. His name's George Bryant. He shared such an insight with me earlier on my podcast that I felt like it's so simple, but it is absolutely essential. If you have something that is valuable and it's only valuable because you're saying it, that's only your voice. But if you have something that's extremely valuable and then other people can use it without you being present, that's like a great joke, a great story. Suddenly they become your promoters, because your messaging is so clear, because everything about what you were and what you did in that experience made it so that they wanted to have that become part of their language. That's what great comedy does. And that's what great stories do. You get those ideas, they put them in their head, it becomes part of them. And then when they have the moment, they can come up with that joke that they tie back to you as a comedian or as the speaker. That's the real value here. If you have clear communication, people can use your stories, your jokes without you being present. And then when they want to hear the rest of the story, they come back to your content and they say, hey, where did you hear that funny story? Oh, you need to hear Gabriel Iglesias say that, or you need to hear Kevin Hart say that. And then they come back and they find your content. That's the promotion thing that I think we're talking about. And it's essential to be able to build a long-term business rather than a fly-by-the-night, candle in the wind type of business.
Yeah.
So let's go to number 4. You talked about first was visual messaging. Second was your home base with your website. Third is your positioning with social media and your accounts. What's number 4?
Yeah, number 4 is having an email strategy. And this is when we talk about how the platforms want to keep you on the platforms. Your main goal as a comedian, as a business owner, is to move people off of the platforms and onto your platform. And your platform, ultimately, like the biggest opportunity you have, is not necessarily to just grow followers and fans on each individual platform, but the long-term value is to collect an email address that you can nurture over time. Because as you know, the platforms, again, like they're more and more getting engineered for you to consume and scroll. The inbox is kind of a sacred space, right? The inbox is where you pay your bills. It's where you contact friends with deeper things, like it's, you interact with your family. And the inbox is actually an opportunity for you to develop a kind of a longer term relationship where people can feel like they know you even more, and like you're not competing at the same level that you are on social media, right? And
Mhm.
so I think there's kind of three main pieces to an email strategy that comedians or even small business owners should consider. Is like, one, you got to make it very easy and obvious of why somebody should give you their email address. So I'm a big fan of this idea of having a lead magnet. Like, what's something of high value that you can give in exchange for a simple email address? And
Mhm.
so for comedians, it tends to be something along the lines of, hey, I have a special 5-minute set you can't find anywhere else. Join my email list to get immediate access. Boom. Like, if I just saw a really funny clip of you online and you're telling me that I can get more that nobody else can see, in a special place by joining your list, I'm more inclined to give you my email address. Another way is, like, if you're a touring comedian and you say, find out when I'm coming to your town, join the email list. That's, again, another compelling reason why somebody would give you their email address. So this lead magnet concept of making it very simple is important.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I'd say kind of an elite level beyond that is like when somebody joins your list, there are tools out there now that you can actually automatically send them like a nurture email sequence, like an automated email, maybe once a day for 5 days, where it doesn't feel like spam. It feels like you're giving them an inside look at your world as a comedian. Because, like, on email one, let's just say you gave them that special 5-minute set that they can't find anywhere. Like, they feel special, and you
Mhm.
tell them, hey, by the way, tomorrow I'm going to tell you why I got into comedy in the first place. Now they're intrigued. They're kind of waiting for that next email because they're curious, like, oh, wow, what's your story? So then email two, you tell them that story. And then email three, maybe you tell them, by the way, I'm also on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, make sure to follow me. Like, you're giving them reasons to engage. And then really you can even automate, like, if you have merchandise, if you have like a store or a special that somebody can purchase, you can include that on that kind of, those last four or five, email number four, email number five, because now you've kind of warmed up that person to, you kind of train them in a way to open your emails and get value out of it. And so
Mhm.
the biggest brands in the world leverage this strategy. And so comedians and small business owners should do the same.
Absolutely. So just to recap, you said email marketing strategy. If you don't have one, you're leaving dollars on the table for sure. Talked about making sure it's easy to do business with you and give them reasons to want to continue to interact. Number two was reasons to engage. What was number three one more time?
You can leverage automation to
Yeah,
to automatically, you know, build that relationship over time, even while you're asleep, right? Most comedians are feel like they can only add value when they're on stage, but truly,
Mhm.
if you start collecting email addresses and have a system, you could be adding value ongoing while you sleep, right? You don't need to have necessarily a special. You don't need to be a touring comedian, with big deals in order to monetize. And that's ultimately the monetization is the fifth foundation, which I can get into in a moment. But yeah, the email strategy I think is key to allow you to monetize.
That's huge. When you look at monetization, this is probably the topic we're going to end on, but I wanted to hear what is the biggest pitfall for people with monetizing, and then we're going to get into some strategies about how to do that in practicality.
Yeah, I'd say, like I mentioned, like for comedians, the be all end all that a lot of comedians think is for them is, I just need to be getting paid more per gig. Like, I want these comedy clubs to pay me more, or I want these corporate gigs to pay me more. I want to be able to raise my rate, and that's understandable because you are bringing value. But if you are a slave only to the price that you can, be paid when you're on stage, then that's where people start making desperate decisions, and you can sense that desperation, right, with every conversation you have with a booker, or as you're looking for opportunities. So the real opportunity with monetization is to have multiple streams of income that, again, are kind of, I would say, ideally automated, so that the more you put out offers, the more people are willing to take you up on it and pay you. So that's kind of a very oversimplified approach, but I think that's the big opportunity, is to see, your comedy career doesn't need to be solely on demanding higher rates, which eventually will happen the more you get on stage and the more you do it. The real opportunity is to have different offers that you can make even when you're not on stage.
Yeah, that's huge. Think about it this way, guys. On stage, if you get in front of 1,000 people and you are so compelling on stage and funny that they're like, man, I want to know more about you. I want to experience what you have. If you have a high ticket offer that you give, you may be able to sell a handful of the people from that after they've come through your process. But if they don't know about you, there's no way they're going to buy your high ticket stuff. If they don't know that you even have other content because you don't reference it either in your material or you don't talk about how you go travel for being on different stages all over the place. Some bookers that are in the audience might be like, well, they're local here, but I don't know if they're going to come all the way to California for this show. This is something that you want to weave into your act. This is something you want to do to make sure that people are always thinking, oh, I want to get more things from them. I want to know more about them, because you're building that relationship. And when people pay, they pay attention. If they don't pay for your comedy, there is a good chance that they'll be like, well, that was a funny joke. I'm going to swipe next.
Yeah.
That's very different than I paid $100 to have these 3 comedy specials that you can't get anywhere else. And I'm going to enjoy this with my whole family. We're going to get popcorn. We're going to watch this. That's a very different purchaser and someone that is really committed to your vision and goal. If they don't just buy one thing, they buy everything you have to offer. So in monetization, there's so many different ways. Merchandise, there's things you can do with the digital assets of creating books or things of that nature. What is the low-hanging fruit for new comedians to be able to start making money, even if they're not getting paid to perform yet?
Yeah. The lowest hanging fruit is selling some form of merchandise, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said something earlier that I think really resonates, is that, when the thing that people love about comedians and their favorite comedians is they see a little bit of themselves in a comedian, right? They laugh because they resonate with what the comedian is either complaining about or bragging about, or, just kind of like self-indulging and, being embarrassed about, like things that you might be normally embarrassed about.
Mm-hmm.
If you have like a slogan or some kind of punchline that other people can identify, that they can identify with, like that's a great thing to put on a piece of merchandise, whether it's a mug or a shirt or a hoodie or a hat, a koozie. Like, there's really no.
What's that?
A koozie is like the little can. It's like a little sweater for your cans.
A sweater for your can.
Yeah, for
You
your can.
hand knit those, is that right?
What's that?
You
Yeah,
hand
I kind of get my little hands in there and make it happen. So, actually one of my clients, Jimmy G, we created a couple of products just like that. And, it's low hanging fruit because if you have some of that on hand and you go on stage, you do your jokes and you say, by the way, I have some merch. You might be even wearing your punchline shirt or whatever. And you say, if you'd like to support me, I got some merch at the table at the end, come visit me and say hello. You're giving fans in the room an opportunity to take action with you, to connect with you, to support you. Right. A great person who does this is Bob Smiley. He's one of my clients. He's been performing for 27 plus years, and he has his, his travel bag, which has his shirts, it has his CDs. He's a published author, so he has his books. So he makes so much money just off of selling merch per gig. And now we've also set him up with an online store, and there's print on demand providers now that you can leverage on your website, that you never even have to actually touch the product. Like if somebody really loves your comedy and they want your merch and you promote it online, they can purchase it, and a different company will print it, ship it for you, and you just collect the profits off of it. So those are the types of like really low hanging fruit opportunities that comedians can take advantage of.
That's huge. When we think about growing this into a life-sustaining business, not just a hobby, that's when you need to get paid more. And if you want to have sticking power to stay for decades, be able to make this a full-on career, you have to be able to get paid well. How do you help people go from, making 100 or 200 bucks, maybe selling merch, to someone that's making significant money in this business?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'd say kind of other main monetization levers that can help you grow that revenue for you as a comedian, is, there's things such as like having special offers that are online especially for the people who are on your mailing list, right? If you prioritize getting people on your mailing list, and that's where you can start really revealing things that to offers to an audience that is already devoted to you, as opposed to like blasting promos on social media where people are bombarded with like every other like swipe that I make on Instagram is an ad. It's just like you're bombarded with ads all day. And so the inbox is a really good place to put out offers like, hey, I have a special coming out at the end of the month. If you want early access to it, just pay $5 and use this platform to get early access. Like that's one quick way to give people a reason to pay you for something that's already going to happen, right? It might even be a free special that you're doing on YouTube, but because your fans are devoted to you and they're excited and you've warmed them up to this, idea, they're going to happily pay you some money there. I'd say an even bigger opportunity is to have a membership offer using a platform like Patreon as an example, where you offer special tiered access to you or to some of your special content, right? A lot of comedians now have podcasts. And so if you're running a podcast and you continue to grow that audience, you can, you can attract different sponsors for those podcasts. So that's another revenue stream. And then B, you can say, hey, by the way, if you love this podcast, join my Patreon and you'll get an extra 20 minutes of footage that you won't see on this podcast. So, and those tiers can be as low as $5 tiers, $10 tiers, $20 tiers. Like it doesn't need to be a lot of money. One great comedian does this is Joel Byers. He's based out of Atlanta, joelbyerscomedy.com, I believe. He has a growing Patreon of people who love his comedy and want to support him and to get special access to some of his podcast stuff. So I think when you combine all these things, and the beauty is you set these systems up once and really they work for you in perpetuity, right? You don't have to keep building this over and over. If you have a rhythm where I'm always doing a podcast every week, then now you have a system. You have a system to monetize, and that in turn exposes you to more people, which keeps that flywheel going and keeps the opportunities coming. Because truthfully, especially with comedy clubs are really counting on their comedians to bring their audience nowadays. Like the expectations have shifted so much where, comedy clubs are really inclined to activate more comedians that are going to help their brand grow as a comedy club. And so I find that a lot of really seasoned comedians who don't have a strong online presence are starting to resent that because, there's a lot of TikTok comedians, right? Who young whippersnappers who are good with technology have thousands of followers, but they get on stage and they have like 5 minutes of material. The comedians who are seasoned, like, man, I wish I had that following. I want that. I want those opportunities. So that's a long-winded way of saying like, there's just so many ways to grow revenue. And those are some opportunities available.
Beautiful. Well, I would love to just recap what we just went over for those of you that came in. You're like, man, I need to understand what we just talked about. And then I want kind of the summary from you as well. What I'm hearing is if we have a strong foundation in our brand, as a comedian, as a speaker, as an author, as a leader, then you're going to be creating opportunities instead of waiting for opportunities. And then what this does for you is you're building relationships long term. You start with your visual messaging, you dive into your home base, which is your website, and the way that you collect data from people. You move on to your positioning of social media and your outreach efforts for that first bit of the flywheel to have them attract to you. And then it comes down to, how do I nurture those relationships? With emails, with video, with content that is compelling and interesting. And then you figure out, how do I turn those interested eyeballs and ears into customers and raving fans? Did I do okay? Is that a good
Spot on. That's exactly.
Okay. Anything to add to that, David?
No, I think that's really the opportunity that every comedian has. And, in turn, really every CEO has for their business, right? If you're the face of your brand, and you're face of your business, then the system is the same for you, right? You may not be telling jokes, but you're being known for your industry or the problem that you solve. And, ultimately, if you build those 5 foundations, you're going to be able to monetize beyond the microphone.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for bringing all of these ideas to us. Talk to us just for 30 seconds. Why do people need to go to comedybranding.com so they can get to know you more?
Yeah, if you're a comedian who wants to get seen, booked, and paid more, and monetize beyond the microphone, then I highly recommend going to comedybranding.com. I've created a free course for comedians that's been taken by over 2,000 comedians. It's called the Comedy Brand Blueprint. You can access that for free. I get a lot of people giving me positive feedback on that, how helpful it is. So consider that my gift to you. And if there's any way that I can support you beyond that, like I have all kinds of products and trainings and one-on-one client opportunities that are here for you. So
Awesome.
Connect with me at comedybranding.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, David. This was a pleasure to talk about comedy. And there was some fun elements here. We had some great value we delivered. Why do people need to listen to the Level Up podcast? Give them a little testimonial on why this is important and why this is helpful.
Well, I think you could probably do a better job of selling you than I can, right? So, but like,
that's right. Tell them. I mean, this is your experience. I want to hear how you felt this went and why.
Well, yeah, you clearly know what you're talking about, right? You've worked with so many entrepreneurs, and you're good at helping business owners and anybody who's kind of the face of their organization speak the words that are going to get them more opportunities, right? So if you can clearly communicate your story, then more and more people are going to lean in and pay attention, and in turn they're going to be able to take action with you, right? So I think that's something that you're really great at communicating and helping other business owners do.
Thank you so much, guys. I also want to just add this. If you're struggling to get any of these ideas across the finish line in that implementation phase of taking the pages or the words that you have on paper and turning it to the stage so you can have that vocal opportunity, definitely reach out. I've got another free offer for you, which is 3 reasons stage fright costs and why you must fix it. When you reach out to me and say, hey, I want to get that book, I will happily give it to you. It is extremely valuable. I've had people pay over $40 just for that little ebook. But the thing is, I'm going to give it to you for free. And what this does for you is it gives you more confidence on and off stage. It gives you an opportunity to take these ideas and get into implementation mode, which if all you got from this is, you know what, I'm going to do one thing and then you go do it. This was well worth 37 minutes of your time. If you don't do anything with what you heard, not super valuable. It's just information. So go get into implementation mode. Reach out to us. So grateful to have David on today. Man, this was so great. I appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Have a great rest of your day, guys. And I love you got a little piece. For those of you that are listening, you kind of see this. He's got these cute little tiny hands that has a peace sign. So you're going to have to go on YouTube now and go check out the ending of this so you can see it. That's so good.
Rock and roll, baby.
Rock on, bro. That's so good. You got a real rock on sign too. That's beautiful. Well, have a great rest of your day. God bless.